We will start financial model with downloading information from FactSet. So I've opened up my FactSet and went to company screen, put in a ticket HD US, and then there I would go into income statement first and wait for it to download. And then click on the green arrow to download income statement. And I'll repeat it for balance sheet and cash flow statement. Just in case you have different settings, I am on fiscal years, 10 periods, original US dollars. Sometimes you could have quarterly frequency. So this is annual. So I've downloaded 3 different files. And now, kind of exciting part, I'm starting with fresh Excel file. So I'm saying file, new. It's not always that you get to do that. You know, sometimes you've got templates from me or other people, but here, you know, I'm letting you, start from scratch, which I think is really valuable. It kind of gives you full control and kind of lets you do the full cycle of work. So first thing I'll do, I'll save it just to keep my work. I'll call it HD 2020 date. I'll get rid of these 2 tabs. I'll need 1 tab, but I'll kind of build them as we go. I'll delete them for now. Call this one model. Kind of teach you some good practice formatting as we go. So when I open these Excel files, I mean, they come pretty nicely formatted, but I would like to have my own format. And also, like, if you can, in practice, if you're presenting this to your management or clients, you kind of want to have your own style. Like, you don't want this to look like you've got it from FactSet or some other system. So what we'll do, we will get rid of all this nice formatting, and then we'll reformat it our way. And also, the reason I do that is that this is actually a small piece of the entire model. So I don't want it to dictate how the model will look going forward, right? This is just historical information. And then we'll build a lot of drivers, forecasts. So I want this part to be actually fairly lightly formatted, and then we'll kind of introduce our own formatting. So note that on the income statement, the figures are in billions of dollars. And on the balance sheet, the figures are in millions of dollars. Let me keep more detailed look. So in my model, I will call it Home Depot Financial Model. And I will have it in millions of dollars. So that means that we will have to redo this income statement, but that's fine. It wouldn't take us long. For now, let me just copy and paste it. I want to start with income statement. So I'll start with the dates and then go all the way down to EBITDA. So pretty much we'll take everything. I like to have just one spare row here to the left. Sometimes people kind of use it to navigate down the road. So I'm kind of starting with column B here. And then what I will pay, so remember here, I press, this is the income statement again. So I press Control C, and then in the model, I will press, let me see, Alt ES for paste special, and then I'll paste values. So I'm not going to use any of FactSet nice formatting. And then let me do the same for balance sheet. Let me close this. So I'll do the same for balance sheet. I will take headings here because my headings may not align. I don't need per share numbers. So again, I'm pressing Alt ES for paste special, and I'm pasting values, not formats, values. And then I'll close balance sheet and go to cash flow statement. Go down to net change in cash. I don't need free cash flow. We'll calculate ourselves. And then copy and paste that. Today's class is fairly simple and kind of technical or manual. It's not a lot of thinking or complex ideas. We're just preparing the ground for forecasting. So next classes, that'll be a little bit more fun. Again, to kind of set it up, let me call this income statement. And then I like to use this kind of formatting when I use blue background, white font for these headings. So that was my income statement. The second one is balance sheet. And the third, cash flow statement. And I will freeze the time periods. So I'll move this one up a little bit. And the way I moved it, if you're curious, so I highlighted these two rows, and then I'm pressing Shift, and then I see how the cursor changed. Once it changed, pressing Shift, I'm moving this up, and then it just jumped up. So I will have these ones on top. Let me move this one somewhere. I just want to have some space. I want, because I want to. I'll freeze this, but I don't want my heading to take too much time, too much space. All right. So and I'll freeze. I'm putting my cell on C4, and I'm pressing Alt WF for freeze panes. So what now I have is my row 3 and 1, 2, 3. They stay frozen, and then the other ones move around. Now, what I'd like to line up now is my periods. Balance sheet doesn't have the LTM column, so I highlighted all the information for balance sheet, and then I press Control X, Control V for cut and paste. Now my periods lined up. For cash flow statement, they're fine. Now they're all lined up. Now that we've done that, I'm going to remove the other ones, the other headings. So the way I remove it, I highlight a couple of rows here, and then I press Alt-EDR, and then press Enter to delete. Same way for these headings, Alt-EDR, Enter, remove the rows. Okay, so the other couple of things I'll do to just kind of set it up, I will have it all in millions. And I will introduce the format that I'd like to use for most of my numbers. So this will be my desired format. I'll press Alt-OE for this formatting to pop up. And then under number, I'll say, I don't want any decimals. I want 1000 separator. And then I'll go to custom and set up negative numbers. So this is interesting coding here that I'd like you to know. So this first set of numbers before semicolon shows how positive numbers will look. And then after semicolon shows how negative numbers will look. And then after second semicolon, I'll put in parentheses a dash, which shows how a 0 will look. And then I press Enter. And then the other thing I'll do, and you can do it a couple of ways. You can go Alt-OE for formatting wherever you were and change the font size, font color. I have FactSet plugin that allows me to change colors by pressing Control quote sign. Too fast here. So I pressed it a couple of times and it changed it to blue. But you can change it any way you're used to. So now let me just kind of play with it. So if it's negative, it should be in brackets. And if it's 0, it should be a dash, not a 0. So that will be my desired format. So I've set it up here. And then what I will do, well, first of all, let's kind of copy it for all of my balance sheet. These are all hard codes. That's how I would like them to look. So I'm pressing Alt, EST, Enter. Now all of my balance sheet looks how I want it to. And then for income statement, I will use a very similar function. So I have copied this 1000, this selected format. And then I'm selecting all of income statement, and I'm pressing Alt, ES, and then I'm pressing M for multiply and Enter. And what it did, it converted my billions into millions, and also it created the format that I want. And I'll do the same for cash flow. Highlight all of cash flow statement, Alt, ESM, and I've got it in the right format. So next thing I'll do, I will pick the right time periods. I'd like 5 years, and these are fiscal periods, by the way. So look at this LTM, last 12 months. That's not a column I'll use at all. I'll delete it because we'll just go by fiscal years. So they've reported the last annual numbers as of January 31st, 2020. So, many companies report for periods ending December 31st. Home Depot wants to capture Christmas period, so they've pushed it out by a month. They still call it this last period, fiscal year 2019, but it's 12 months, ended on January 31st, 2020. So I will take 5 of those years, copy this, and that's all I'll use. I'm not going to use these earlier periods. So I'll press Alt-EDC, and then I'll delete these other columns. And then I'd like them to be lined up from left to right. So I'm kind of manually dragging these columns. So I'm selecting the whole column D here, and then I wait until my cursor turns into these arrows, pressing Shift and then dragging it to the right. That's how I move these things around. So the first period is January 16, January 17, 18, 19, 20. And then we will carry it to the right. But let me do one more thing here. Instead of January 16, I will actually put a date here. I will put in 01/31st, 2016. Now it kind of looks okay, but not how I'd like it to look. So I'll go Alt-OE, number, date, and then you see these different options. I will select it as March 01. So it looks very similar to what we've had before, but now the important distinction here is that now these are actual dates in Excel, and we'll use it a little bit later when we talk about discounting. What I had from FactSet was just text, but now I actually have a number that Excel recognizes. So I selected these two. If you select 2 or 3 numbers and then there's a pattern there, Excel figures it out when you just copy and paste it. So I've recreated the headings here. I'll make them bold. I don't need these days here. I'll remove them. So it's kind of starting to look like a beginning of financial model. We've got historic information populated. I can't find a good place here for these buildings. Maybe I'll put them here. All right. So the next thing, sort of manual, I'd like us to recreate formulas in historical financial statements. So wherever there's internal logic here, and we'll start with gross margin, gross income. Gross income is sales minus cost of goods sold. So let's create the formula because it'll be helpful for us to have that for forecast. So let's check it. So right now I have 28,575. So I'll say equals sales minus COGS. You got the same number. So this is where this FactSet plugin comes in handy. So I'm pressing Control quote mark, and I press it a few times, and it turns into black. So I'll kind of do this color coding fairly quickly. And now I'm just pressing Control C, select the row, Control V, and then copy this formula and the format. And maybe the other thing I'll add here, I'll select this row, and then I'll press Alt-O-E, and then under border, I'll create this upper border. It's a small thing, but my recommendation is when you have these underlines, before you get to the total, I would actually suggest that you format the total line not the line above it. It'll save you some time later on, and you'll see kind of when you change formatting, it's actually useful to have this border above the total line in that particular total cell. So sales minus COGS is gross income. When we subtract SG&A from that, we get EBIT. And that's what FactSet has. Let me copy and paste format. So we've got EBIT recreated. You know, this is an interesting thing I actually figured out by referring to actual published financials. So what FactSet calls non-operating income, it's actually interest income, which makes sense, right? Non-operating interest income is sort of the same. So let me actually call it interest income. That's exactly what it is. If you go to 10K, you'll see these numbers. Interest income. And then you've got interest expense with the same sign. So it's kind of something you need to watch out. Unusual expense and income taxes. So we've got 3 expense lines and 1 income line to get to consolidated net income. So 7,009 is calculated as EBIT plus interest income in line 11 minus the other 3 expense lines. So we've matched that number. Let's actually call it net income and then just call it a day. Like, I don't need any other lines here all the way until we get to EBITDA. And EBITDA, I'd like to recreate by adding depreciation to EBIT. So EBITDA is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. So you've got all that, less depreciation in EBIT. So if I add depreciation to EBIT, I should match my EBITDA. And depreciation I find on cash flow statement. That's exactly what FactSet has. We've calculated EBITDA. So we are done spreading income statement. So you see how some numbers are blue, the inputs are blue. We've got, you know, several formulas, and kind of having formulas here is kind of a win for us. You know, like we figured out logic. You know, it'll save us a lot of time going forward. You know, like these sums are fairly easy to carry for the forecast. Well, let's do a similar thing for balance sheet. We've got assets, cash, short-term receivables, inventory, other current assets, and the sum of that should be total current assets. So I'm in this cell C25. It has 16,993 in it. So if I press Alt plus, it'll give me a sum. And then I will copy formatting for that and drag it to the right. So I've replicated the formula for current assets. The next one is net plant property and equipment. I'll actually delete this line for long-term note receivable. We don't need that. Intangibles, deferred tax assets, other assets, and then you've got total assets. So here I'll press equals sum, and then sum up everything from current assets down. And that gives me total assets. I'll make next section liabilities and equity bold. Short-term debt and current portion of long-term debt, accounts payables, these are all fine. So for current liabilities, I'll do the same, press Alt plus sign, copy formatting. I didn't copy formatting here, let me do that. And then the other lines are long-term debt, deferred tax liabilities, other liabilities, total liabilities. So total liabilities are sum of current liabilities and below, copy format. And then I've got these three lines repeated. I don't need them. Let me just call it common equity. And so I'll remove the other two lines. And then total liabilities and shareholders' equity will be total liabilities plus common equity. Copy and paste. And then I will have another line, which is technical but important. I'll call it check. Formatted. And what it is, it's total assets minus total liabilities and shareholders' equity. The difference is 0. So my balance sheet balances historically, which is great. This will be one of checks for our quality of our forecast. We'll need to make sure that the balance sheet balances. And this check line will kind of quickly show us whether we accomplished that or not. For cash flow statement, we'll start with operating activities. I'll make this one black and just link it to income statement. So net income on cash flow statement, it comes from income statement. Depreciation is fine, and then you've got some other non-cash items. Funds from operation is just the total of the lines above. So funds from operations. Changes in working capital. I actually would like to call these out. We'll need to model each line here for working capital. And facts have just kind of lumped them for us. So what I'll do, let me go to assets. So cash is not included in changes in working capital. So it's really receivables, inventory, and other current assets. So these are the lines that we will be modeling. Maybe make them indented a little bit. And then for liabilities, it's short-term debt, accounts payable, and then other current liabilities. I'm actually not going to model income tax payable. It's very small. So I'll paste it here, but I'll delete it. So we've got 3 lines for liabilities, 3 lines for assets. Historically, I'm not going to replicate these changes and flow them through cash flow, but I'd like to have this placeholder, and that's how we will build the forecast. But for now, this is the total change in working capital. So net operating cash flow would be funds from operations plus changes in working capital. Next section is investing activities. I'm just kind of cleaning it and reformatting it for now. Capital expenditures are fine. Net assets from acquisitions are good. So these are all good items. So net investing cash flow would be the total. Just formatting here. Financing activities is the next section. Let's just again replicate the total. I'm pressing Alt plus sign. Got that done. Exchange rate effect is just miscellaneous line. I'm not going to forecast it. I'll leave it here just so that my numbers tie. Let me do one thing with net change in cash here. Well, first of all, let me replicate it. So 493 would be net operating cash flow plus net investing cash flow plus net financing plus exchange rate effect. Make it blue. I'll drag it. So now we've kind of recreated the logic of all three financial statements. Let me do one more thing. I'll have a line here called beginning balance of cash and then ending cash. So ending cash. So the balance sheet information is always at the end of the period. So in this column, January 16, ending cash would be what we've been given. We don't have beginning cash. I've deleted it. We had it from January 15. But this schedule is kind of will repeat it many times. So ending cash I've got, and then beginning cash for next period is the ending cash for prior period. So I'll just link them, make them black, and then ending cash is beginning plus net change. Let me add a line here. And then I'll just drag all that. And then let me have another check line here. So I'll say check, and what it is, it's taking this ending cash and comparing it with what I have hard-coded on the balance sheet. Is that the same? It is. So the good thing is, like these numbers flow, and they've tied to the balance sheet, which is good.